How to protect your assets after an injury. I'm Joel, this is Chase. Welcome back to the Williams, Elleby, Howard & Easter YouTube channel. That's what we're going to talk about today, is once you're injured, the steps and things you need to look at to protect the assets that you do have and maximize any recovery that you may get. So first, let's talk about insurance.
Get insurance. End of story. No, it's funny because obviously get insurance. Sometimes you're required to have insurance, right? If you have a vehicle, you're required to have insurance. You're now required to have health insurance. But there's other types of insurances that are worth looking into if you can afford to have it, that are beneficial, right? You can have disability insurance, which is a big thing, right? If you work, you have a high-paying job, you get injured, how are you going to get paid, right? If you leave. But it's always important to have insurance, have good insurance, have insurance that's going to cover you for the assets that you have. A good example I like to give, which is kind of simple, is I have seen auto insurance policies for someone that has a car that's $75,000, where the property damage portion of that coverage is $25,000.
Way to go, insurance agent.
Right. So it's funny because, and Joel, you can probably test this as well, is most of the time when people come to us, they just assume they have coverage, right? Everyone always tells me they have full coverage. I have full coverage. I have full coverage. And then you get the policy and it's like the bare minimum coverage, right? It's full in the sense that you can legally drive on the road. But it's definitely not something you ever really look at or sit down and kind of digest until you actually need to. And when you need to, sometimes it's too late, right? To know exactly what it is that you have and make sure you have adequate coverage. So it's always important, you see a lot of, just like you see lawyer ads everywhere, you see insurance ads everywhere because it's important, right? It's important to have insurance. It's important to have the right insurance for what you need. You don't need too much insurance. You don't need too little insurance. You need just right. It's kind of like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So.
Yeah, but I think, after you're injured, one of the important things to do is to identify all sources of insurance and utilize them to best protect yourself. So, for example, obviously you want to look at your automobile insurance policy. Do I have MedPay? Do I have All of these type things. Do you have health insurance, right?
Yep.
If you do, then maybe you want to consider using that to get the medical treatment that you might need. The disability policy for sure, but any other kind of insurance you may have, go ahead and identify it, see what kind of coverage you have, and hopefully you have enough and you've prepared ahead of time. But first step after the injury is making sure you know what's available to you to utilize. But then let's move on to the next step as far as assuming you have a bodily injury and you need treatment. You got to figure out how you're going to pay for that. Are you going to be self-pay? Are you going to be utilizing health insurance? Are you going to need to find a medical provider that can treat you on a lien, meaning that they won't send you a bill after the treatment? You'll have to pay them back out of any recovery you get. If you can't find a provider that will treat you on a lien, are there options to use third-party funding companies, third-party companies that will pay your medical bills for you while you're treating, and then you have to pay them back? Typically, when you're protecting your own assets, if you have health insurance, it's a good idea to use it because that's going to require the least amount of out-of-pocket payments from you on the front end, and minimize the chance that you have to pay somebody back a whole lot of money once you do get a settlement.
Yeah, and we can do, and I think we have actually done videos on the intricacies as it relates to using health insurance, funding companies, medical payments coverage and all that. But I think the broader picture is, just if you're hurt, know what your options are and what is going to be the best source of insurance or source of coverage, or not even insurance or coverage, but what's going to be your best option to get treatment. But from a case perspective, that's also going to maximize your recovery depending on the amount of your injuries, the amount of insurance coverage, and things like that.
Yep. Step number 3, get a lawyer.
Get a lawyer.
So I know that's
when in doubt, get a lawyer. That's like a life motto, right?
Yep. So we talked a whole lot about insurance. Now we're about to talk about lawyers. We love to act like we hate each other, but civil lawyers probably couldn't earn a living if there weren't insurance companies, and insurance companies wouldn't have a need to issue a bunch of policies if there weren't us lawyers to sue them. So here we are.
Right, it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, so if you're going to deal with insurance, you're probably going to want to deal with a lawyer. But you're going to want to find a lawyer that knows what he or she is doing as far as the type of case that you have is concerned, right? If you've got an automobile wreck case, you need a lawyer that's reputable, experienced, and knows what they're doing in your state and your jurisdiction for automobile wreck cases. Same thing for trip and falls or med mals or product liability or anything like that. You have to find a lawyer, and there's a few steps you can take to make sure you don't get swindled, and that you actually get a lawyer that is credible and experienced and has a good reputation. You want to go through a few of those?
Well, I'd say number one, make sure you're talking to a lawyer, right? Sure. Just like you would interview anyone, make sure you're interviewing and talking to the lawyer before you agree to be represented by a company or a no-name lawyer or whoever. I could get on a tangent about people signing up or, getting a phone call from someone, hey, I'm so-and-so, come sign up with us, and that's illegal, that's unethical, and this, that, and the other. But just interview and talk with the actual lawyer who's going to be the one working on your case, for one, right? Then two, you can go check online, check reviews, see if they've got good reviews, bad reviews, check with friends and family, right? A lot of times it's word of mouth, right? If someone's had a good experience with one lawyer, or a bad experience with another lawyer or law firm, those are always ways to, make sure you're doing due diligence to pick the right lawyer for you. Yeah, and I'd say go with your gut at the end of the day, right? Does it feel right, or does it feel slimy? Right. If it feels slimy, it probably is slimy. Right. If you feel comfortable and you feel like you can trust the person you're talking with, then by all means hire that person, because they'll probably be a good fit for you. Yeah. Now let's talk about negotiations, because anytime you're dealing with a personal injury or bodily injury, there's going to come some negotiations with the insurance company or with the person who hurt you, right? So there's a few tips to live by. I'll start with liability. There's certain things that you're going to want to get in every injury case to document your allegations that it was somebody else's fault or that you were injured. Open records, so let's just take a car wreck example because they're the most common and the easiest. Police reports, body cams, 911 calls, dash cam footage, photographs of the scene, photographs of the property damage, all of these things, witness statements, all of these things to prove that it wasn't your fault. Document that and get it so it can't be seriously disputed. Medical records, medical bills, all of these things that can show that you were actually injured, how you were injured, and to what degree you were injured, and what your damages are. If you've got medical bills, get them. If you have lost wages, document that. Get a note from your employer. Get your payroll records, your W-2s, your 1099s, whatever. All of these things to document that it wasn't your fault and what your damages are, and then you want to present them to the insurance company in a certain way. Yeah, in a demand, right? A written demand. We've done videos and blogs and things like that on the proper way to send, especially an auto car wreck demand. But yeah, you want to get it presented clear, neatly to the insurance company. Let them know what you're asking for, why you're asking for, support it with all the things that Joel just talked about. Videos, photographs, medical records, medical bills. Send it to the insurance company and give them an opportunity to review, make an offer, and pay that demand. Which brings me to another kind of on the flip side of this. We're plaintiff's lawyers, but the title of this video is protecting your assets, especially if let's say you're on the receiving end of a personal injury case. In certain cases, it's definitely, I think, important or advantageous for you to hire separate counsel to review and look over what the insurance company is doing on your behalf, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you've got a sweet dog and your dog bites your neighbor kid in the face, causes bad injuries, causes bad damages and things like that. Well, of course, your insurance company is going to be handling all of that for you, right? They're going to be the ones that are going to be reviewing the demand. They're going to be the ones that set up the claim. They're going to be the ones that are going to be paying within the policy limits of whatever it is that your coverage allows. But what you have to be aware of and need to know is that 9 times out of 10, us as the plaintiff's lawyers are usually almost always seeking an amount that's the policy limits or less, or within the policy limits, right? But if we're demanding the policy limits to the insurance company and the insurance company's not wanting to pay them, or pay us, or pay whoever is making the claim, just for whatever reason, it's always a good idea to have your own lawyer, especially if you can afford it and you have the assets to afford it, to review what the insurance company is doing so that the insurance company is not putting you and your assets at risk of a potential judgment. So that's, again, we could probably do another video on that for a separate day, but that's another thing to consider, especially on higher exposure cases. Yeah, somebody to police the insurance company. Correct. To make sure they're doing their job to protect you. Right. Okay, so finally, if you have a potential medical malpractice case, a trip and fall case, or a products liability case, or an aviation case, any case that's going to involve the use of
experts, stop what you're doing, listen to this next sentence in this video, then turn the video off and go do what I'm about to tell you. Hire a lawyer.
Right.
Period. Just hire a lawyer, because the things that go on in those type cases are much more complicated than an ordinary run-of-the-mill who ran the red light case. So just do yourself a favor, go ahead and get a good lawyer to help you with any of those type cases. So, well, we hope this video has been helpful to you when it comes to protecting your assets after a personal injury. If so, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, we will see you next week. As personal injury lawyers, we love what we do, and we're happy to share the experience we've gained in personal injury law. To help our family, friends, and YouTube subscribers, we've shared over 300 personal injury videos covering various injury topics. So if you'd like to gain more knowledge that may help protect yourself or a loved one when they're on the roads or out in public, check out our channel or view our playlist of shorts for quick personal injury tips.